welcome, Flip Clock fans. We're going to look at the RC-6025, the Panasonic Groundhog Day Flip Clock. We're going to talk about some considerations about this clock, if you consider buying one, what's going on with it, some things to look for, and some things you're probably not going to be able to look for. And as a bonus, for any of you who have ever seen the LaCrosse Flip Clock, it's a modern flip clock, which I really like. It's got some interesting features. There's something going on with this one that's a little different than before. If you've got one, you may notice what I'm talking about. It's not about it being in sync with this one. It's about the seconds. So that's kind of as a bonus. If you have a LaCrosse and you're looking at that and saying, wait a second, it's working. But anyway, we'll talk about that at the end. If you're interested, I'll put a link to that part of the video. So what about this? This is a clock that I'm considering selling on eBay. I haven't made the final decision yet. It's a pretty good clock. The considerations about this clock, I remember the day when people were freaking out that these clocks could often go for $100. Well, as you know, they're going to go for more than that now. You'll see about various prices. What's a consideration? First of all, you're not going to be able to tell some of the things about the clock by just looking at it on pictures. So I'm going to go into this, and I guess there's really no way for you to know this until you buy the clock. But we're going to go over what makes a good clock. This happens to be a good clock. Is it perfect? No, it's got scratches, some imperfections. The thing about, but not bad, really. But the thing about these clocks, this was the bargain basement clock for Panasonic. It was the lowest price clock that they made. Then, as you know, it's probably one of the most expensive now. The Back to the Future clock, the difference there, it's a different configuration, but the other difference is it's more fragile. This is not as fragile for some reason, plastic for sure. It's not as fragile, but it still can break. That's the thing. If people have over-torqued screws, they can crack the plastic in these clocks. Now, I've already removed the 4 screws at the bottom here, a real long 5 screws at the bottom, so we can take a closer look here. Now we carefully remove because the speaker is right there. Now that's one of the first considerations, because the thing is, there's no screen here. So if you've got a vintage clock, which most of these are going to be, I have not seen a new inbox 6025. I think that would be valuable. I would love to have it. Now, speaking of valuable, as you know, I've been selling some clocks on eBay, and there's part of the reason for that. I have too many, but also I had my eye on a clock on eBay that's the guy who just wouldn't come down on the price. I believe it's a supremely rare clock, and it has a lot of interest to me personally. So some of the clocks I sold went into that pot to get that clock. If you guys have been watching eBay, you may know, because that clock disappeared. Well, I've got it. It's coming in the mail. We'll talk about that some other time. So here's the thing. When you take these clocks apart, this is usually completely filled with garbage. You have no idea what kind of shape the cone is in. This one happens to be in very good shape. So if this is a vintage clock, it's going to be filthy in here. It's been cleaned. You look around, you can see that there are no cracks in any of the screw places. The other thing is, some people will go ahead and replace the original light with a LED. There's a couple reasons they do that. I don't do that. I use the proper replacement, which is a 12 volt 50 milliamp that is underpowered a little bit, which will make it last longer. The light will be yellowish because it is underpowered. These are the original. I may sell some of these on eBay. If I do sell this clock, I'll include one of these as bonus. But this, I'm going to show you what's going on here. For the clock to work, this is actually a 6025 internals here. it must pass through a blue filter. So it takes the yellow light, passes through the blue filter, and makes it white. Often these are broken. So someone's not been careful taking it off. There's a way to take it off properly. You gently lift up the legs here, very gently. This can be fragile. This is an original bulb right here. You can tell it's got the part number on here. Likely doesn't work. This whole setup is not a bad situation here, but I've discovered that the transformer is non-functional. So I have no idea about the rest of this. I've got other transformers, but the way you would test is, first of all, you plug it in. You can immediately test if you have a tester to see if there's any voltage coming here. Thing that's unique about the where the motor is. Often the motors won't spin on vintage clocks because they're stuck, but it's right out in the open. You should be able to take a voltage tester and read about 10 volts. That's another curious thing. A lot of our clocks with the Copel motors are running on 120 volts. Don't test that motor by plugging it into 120. I hate to tell you, I did that one time on another clock. Burned it right up, obviously. So that's unique. It uses a 10 volt motor. Other than that, it's really easy to work on these. You can see this one hasn't been cleaned. Probably someone had this in Europe or somewhere else and plugged it in to 220 and killed the transformer, or it just died. This speaker, it's okay. It's had some water drip into it, but it's intact. This is okay. It doesn't look as pretty as the other one. These always get lost. This is a filter that goes on top of your AM/FM selector. So again, you're looking at the quality of this clock, which is there. I need to put this in a baggie if I'm going to manipulate this. Often these will get punctured inadvertently. I got to be careful. So in this situation, we see this goop on here, right there. That's a wax they put on there. Don't know why. Maybe you electronics people know. They drip wax on here, but all the coils are in really good shape. There's one there. They've not been manipulated or manhandled in any way. This on here, that's normal. They put a varnish. Now this is hot, so I got to be careful. But they put a varnish on here in this coil. There's nothing wrong with that. That's normal. It's not been retouched. So how do I know this is working? Obviously, we get the operation indicator, also known as the whirligig, doing its thing. But we've got our transformer here, full voltage coming in here, full household current, and then the three leads, yellow, white, and red, or white, yellow, red in a row there. So if you take your tester set to alternating current, you can easily go right here from the yellow to the white, and we're reading about 9.7 volts. If I could keep it steady, it's 9.7. Then you go from yellow to red. Some people ask for this information sometimes. It's hard to get in here. Yellow to red is going to give you 20 volts of alternating current, and red to white, make sure that's right, there, red to white, it's just a little over 10 volts of alternating current. So that's what the board uses, and as we know, part of that's to power the motor at 10 volts, powers the board and all that. Now there's several things that, not several, there's three things that you got to look at to get this thing working properly. It's got an interesting slider here, so whether it's going to go radio or alarm, it depends on the slider. So you may need to put some electrical contact cleaner up under that slider. Because of the control knob, it'll move it forward That was radio. That's the alarm. So that's how this controls what happens. It's not tuned in, of course. Another place to lubricate is underneath this slider here. And in the potentiometer here, in that place right there, you would squirt in some contact cleaner and get that moving. I'm looking at this to see about my capacitors. This radio lends itself to easy capacitor switch out. We can see here these capacitors are in good shape. There's no leaking, there's no swelling. They're still functioning. Some people just want to go ahead and replace those anyway. I don't do that unless they're not working. If something's wrong with the clock. This one, that's for someone else to do. Not me. So that's the considerations on a Panasonic RC-6025. Again, if you buy that online, you're not going to know how much this has been messed with. If it's an original light down there, that light has a lead and it gets soldered into this board here. So this one has a new light. Again, if I go to sell, I'll go ahead and include an extra one. Usually I include a little bit of shrink wrap on the end of it here. It makes it fit better. A little bit of that. It makes it look original, and it fits better into the filter. So that's that. If you're interested, kind of let me know. I can't give it away. I want to be reasonable with the price on this. You'll see them going for over $400 right now. Of course, they're taking offers, but I don't know if it's worth it. So what's going on with that clock? Well, the seconds have been working. So if you've seen one of those or heard someone talk about them, sometimes it skips seconds. So I said, I've got to figure out why it was doing that. Now, sometimes it'll lag a little bit. So what did I figure out? Well, I tried everything. I thought maybe the shape of the tiles was a little different. Maybe it was, because I've manipulated this several times. And why it does here, it sticks here sometimes and not here, I don't know. But this is running pretty good. So what did I do? Well, I used this dry lubricant. So it goes on wet. It leaves a dry coating for smoother. It's for firearms, but we're using it for flip clocks. Firearms and flip clocks, whatever. So I sprayed a little bit. And it's easier on this side to spray here. You can get access to where the tabs go in. And then I sprayed here. Now what did that do? That caused a lot of overspray. But so what I can certify is that heptane, denatured alcohol, and all this other stuff does not damage the tiles, the paint, or the plastic. So I took a risk there. So you see, here's one of the tiles. It's just a standard flip clock tile. And I don't know why it needed lubrication. I don't think it was rough in there. But it seems to be working a lot better now. So that's for anybody who's interested in it. And again, like any flip clock tile on any clock, when you put it in, you want to go ahead and be careful when you take it out. You got to bend the tile like this to get it in. These are very flexible. And cool thing about these clocks is if you've unplugged them, they'll catch up. So I still like my LaCrosse. I don't get any kickback for that. I'm not pushing them. I'm just saying I like my LaCrosse. And now it works a little better. Well, there it is. If you have any questions about the 6025, the Groundhog Day clock, or if you're interested in buying this, kind of let me know. I haven't put it up for sale. This one, again, it has scratches and it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. This one happens to have the original sticker still on here. That's hard to find because, again, if you're restoring these, you have to clean up sometimes, and often those get lost. So that's it. A pretty nice model there. Anyway, thanks for taking the time.